Yes, good morning and welcome. This is indeed Power Breakfast right here on Citizen TV. It's that time when we take a look at the headlines. This morning we're privileged to have, let me start from my immediate left, Bwana Karanja Kabadia, candidate for MP in Njoro constituency. Next to him we have Brian Weke, governance expert, and Kimani Wamatangi, Senator, Kiambu County. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome. Quick look at the headlines, and we start off with the Daily Nation. It is a hard life for Uhuru and Raila on the trail, and this is the campaign trail they're talking about. Dust, heat, crowds, early days and late nights, order of the day. Remember, this gentleman are not used to this kind of hard life in their day-to-day activities. On the front page of the Standard, Raila's move, which could stall elections, and probably this is the biggest talking point today. Ballot paper standoff with Raila instructing his lawyers to go to court, which they're doing today, to block Al Ghuraya tender. Kenya stares at the prospect of a delayed poll if contract is overturned or hearing takes long. We'll be discussing that as well. Other very interesting headlines have to do with the IEBC's disciplinary team. Yesterday they summoned and had 7 different cases. At least 14 candidates were summoned to appear before the enforcement committee with regard to allegations of breach of the Electoral Code of Conduct. Those rulings could be delivered today. Will anyone be barred from running for office? What does it mean if NASA goes to court? Of course, that's on the front page of the Daily Nation. The same story as that on the Standard. On top here, Uhuru stars Central as Raila woos Rift Valley. Both teams continue on the campaign trail. These are some of the headlines we're looking at today. But let's start off with other things apart from politics. On page 8 of the Standard, and this story is also on page 11 of the Daily Nation, has to do with education and indiscipline in schools. State to post spiritual heads to high schools. That's on page 8 of the Standard. On page 11 of the Daily Nation, let's see how that headline reads. Parents to blame for indiscipline, says CS. Matiang'i announces that state will introduce chaplains in schools. Now, gentlemen, of course, earlier this week, I think, was it Monday or Tuesday, we had this story about from Samburu, where Standard 6 pupils actually beat up their female teachers. Now, the CS yesterday, speaking somewhere in Tononoka, says that now the indiscipline should be blamed on the parents, and the state will now provide chaplains or religious heads in schools. Do you think that that's a solution? That probably we are lacking to some extent in our spirituality. That's why we are indisciplined. And when I say us, it's a collective term. Let's start with you, Bwana Kabadi.
Thank you, Fred. Well, I think let's look at the word discipline or indiscipline. It is a tragedy when you have situations of indiscipline generally. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about schools, you're talking about the conduct of the society, or you're even talking about the implications of indiscipline. First and foremost, the responsibility of indiscipline is shared by the parents and the school administration. First, why parents? Children at the level of upbringing, they must be taught their future is intertwined with you being disciplined as a child. I've never seen a successful future anybody who conducts themselves in such a manner that they do not obey rules and regulations and even laws of any country. So the child must be told your life is at risk the moment you choose the path of being indisciplined.
But the CS seems to suggest that, as you say, it is shared, but the CS seems to suggest that it's up to the parents, that it is your sole responsibility as a parent. Don't leave it to the school.
Yeah, I want to just come to both the parents and the schools. The parents, it is the upbringing of children that is very fundamental, because the first school is home. And this is where you begin by telling the child their do's and don'ts. The moment the do's and don'ts are not obeyed at home, then you extrapolate that and you find it manifesting itself in schools. And this is very, very important, because I can remember when we were children, obeying your parents was not an issue of option, because no parent will want her or his child to be involved in activities that will be injurious to this particular child. And that's why the rules and regulations at home are very fundamental, that the child must realize, if we are told not to do things, not a parent that hate you, but the parents have experience and they know if you did this, there are consequences.
So by the time that does not happen at home, it means by the time the child goes to school,
the moment the child now goes to school and the conduct at home was unbecoming, then you see a manifestation of that very clearly when the child now disobeys authority.
Okay.
Now that disobedience of authority manifests itself in the child not listening to what the teacher is saying. Now when the child does not listen to what the teacher is saying, the teacher has a very difficult time, because you remember, say for a class of about 50 kids, you have 2 or 3 kids who are indisciplined. The tendency of copycatting, you copy the child who is indisciplined, is very high, because children are impressionable. And therefore, if they see a child standing up to our authority, the chances of others following suit is very, very high. Now, why does the school become also responsible? The schools should become responsible because, one, when the child enters school, you must begin by saying, what are the do's and don'ts from day one. Now, if you do not adhere to the do's and don'ts at the time of entry, then what do you invite? You invite children to do anything they want.
Okay.
So schools must at the entry point be able to tell the children, this is what do's and don'ts.
But Brian Weke, introducing chaplains or religious heads in schools, if at all the parents have already failed at home, how will it work? Because teachers already are not allowed to use the cane on the children. Now introducing a religious head in school. Do you really think a chaplain can correct the errors that parents have made?
This is what my learned senior PLO calls band-aid solutions for a cancerous problem. You know, it's equivalent to, I saw in Ghana, they've introduced police uniforms with no pockets as a means to fight corruption. You know, we have to go back to the moral fabric of the society. And even before we do that, you know, our parents in this society, they are too busy looking for livelihoods. Our parents are too busy looking for money. Our parents are too busy ensuring there is shelter. You take your child to a good school, and you think you've done your bit. The primary responsibility of shaping the character of your child is actually the parent. So we have abdicated our roles and responsibilities as parents. So even before you hand over your child to school, Senator Wamatangi, before he serves the people of Kiambu, he has to serve his home first, and more so his children, because the biggest role model for a child and it's not even actually the mother, it's the father. So let us call a spade, and let's be very honest. We have failed as a society to be able to shape the character of our children. Now you think bringing a chaplain in school will automatically change the character of our children, will automatically determine what they believe in, but will automatically...
Probably we're trying to deal with, even if we try to change the society, there's already this group that, if we may call them disadvantaged, they did not get enough parental time and or other time from their parents, and so they're already out there, they're already in discipline. Probably the chaplains and religious heads are going to at least provide some remedy for that particular grouping, don't you think, Senator?
Well, probably thinking from that point, one would say you require a multifaceted solution or approach to bring up a solution. But in furtherance to what my two colleagues have said, and especially Brian, remember recently there was a survey that was conducted, and out of that survey the report was that in as many as gays and homosexuals who are in society today, they reported that almost 8 out of 10 of those reported that they started the habit in school and then grown out into society. And I support what Brian said. I want to add this. I think we have driven ourselves also into a crisis even before we look at what our other responsibilities as parents. I think generally as a society we are in a spin of trying to play correct, catch up, and befitting within cultures and norms that are not ours. For example, sometimes I get amused. I go to one of the shopping malls. I remember the other day I was in a shopping mall on the way to Kikuyu. There's a place called the Hub, a new one. And I walked in there with my children and my wife, and we said, let's get in here. Maybe we could have a quick lunch and then proceed. We're going to the county. And when you get in there, there's a place where kids are playing, sliding and gliding, and where there is a sitting around there, you find a few, 4, 5, 6 kids who are very busy. Some of them with fancy digital gadgets, like these phones, busy when their colleagues are sliding there. Expensive gadgets, and they're on internet or whatever. Tiny kids, and that time next to them, the dad is sitting next there, also with his, also punching. The mother is somewhere there. Also, and you ask yourself, my kids sometimes approach me and ask me, Dad, can you buy me a smartphone, a touch screen? And the one who is asking me that is 9 years old. I tell him, my good son, a touch screen phone.
Are you saying technology is to blame?
What for?
and they
want iPhones, and I want to tell you this friend. As parents, we must stay true to those 2 rules. 1, as they say, spare the rod, spoil the child. 2, it is...
At least corporal punishment is still allowed at home.
Yes.
It's yet to be banned.
and secondly, it is self-defeating. It is folly for a parent to try and impress your children by raising them to standards in life or complications that they have not yet developed, either mentally or physically, to cope with. And I think those are some of the areas where we are looking.
I don't want us to dwell on this particular headline for too long, because we have quite a number of other discussions that we need to have. But yes, Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i has blamed parents for the indiscipline in schools, and he says that lack of better parental involvement has led to unruliness among students. Now he says, quote, "We have a crisis of absentee parents, people who think that others should take care of their children for them, and if you do not have time to raise your children, you have no business having them in the first place." That's CS Matiang'i saying. Now he says that the state will now introduce chaplains in schools just to try and improve on the discipline.
I just want to comment on 2 things. In 2008, I was in the US and I was listening to Obama. Obama made a very interesting comment, which I always remember. He said, any fool can be a father, but takes a special person to be a father, to bring up children. I think also we, the parents, really need to take very serious responsibility about the conduct, not only of children, even our own conduct. Because you see, the children tend to copy who you are yourself. And let's look at the general conduct of our society. We have this thing, you hear people say, haki yetu. You find that we demonstrate, whether they are doctors, they are nurses, they are politicians, we don't want this institution, therefore we must go to the street and do whatever it is we want to do. Now, what do you think are the children doing? The children have come to realize, yes, if the political leaders can go and say, Ost IBC, and we all run to the street and do all kinds of things, children are watching. They are not insulated from our conduct as a society. So it's not only the children are to blame. There is need for retrospection by us parents. How do we solve problems, or how do we deal with conflicts? Our way of dealing with the conflict is confrontation. Now, what does that mean to a child? If I don't like what the teacher likes,
you beat up the teacher.
You beat up the teacher. Now, if I don't like IBC institution, I go to the street. We do all sort of things. And this is against the rules, first of all, the constitution, the laws, and the rules of conduct. So that now, when we are talking about the children are behaving this way and that way, the question we ask ourselves is this: as a general society, how do we conduct ourselves? How do we resolve differences? How do we resolve conduct? You know,
and by extension, even punishment of people who break the law.
Precisely.
And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about politicians specifically, because the question of integrity has come up quite a number of times, and there's also a headline on the Standard. If I could just have this copy of the Standard on page 7 of the Standard. This is the churches again. Now, churches come in the same way as C.S. Matiang'i says is going to introduce chaplains in schools. Churches criticize IEBC for clearing politicians. The religious groups have hit out at the electoral agency for allowing politicians with integrity questions to run in the August 8th polls. There seems to be this general feeling in Kenya that however nasty you may be, however many laws you may break, nothing will happen to you. That even if you break a law today, you will still be on the ballot as a politician. And that's one of the questions we keep asking. Even what IEBC is currently doing by summoning people who are on allegations of breach of the electoral code of conduct, the 14 of them, the general feeling is that nothing will happen to them. Yes, even if the IEBC rules something, anyone can go to court and still ensure that they're on the ballot come 8th of August. That is a societal problem, or what is happening, because the laws are there, Brian. The laws are there. The laws are clear. You handled quite a number of elections as an observer. You're a governance expert. What is the problem?
Now, first of all, as regards integrity, and I listen to my learned colleagues handling this matter on a number of shows, and we seem to confuse the difference between integrity and a criminal offense. While I appreciate the fact that the Constitution provides for being innocent until proven guilty, issues of integrity are not criminal. And we focus more, when you listen to politicians talking, they say, but I have not been convicted.
Yes.
I am innocent until proven guilty. That is as regards a criminal offense. But issues to do with integrity, this goes down to values. You find somebody has fathered a kid outside wedlock, and they are proud of it, and they are holding public office, and they are saying, what is your problem? I am maintaining. No, there is a value issue. There is an integrity issue. There is an issue that if you are in another jurisdiction, then that would warrant you to resign. Now that does not happen in this country. We know people who have been on record saying, I'd rather die than resign. You know, it is a concept that does not apply within this part of the world. Now, until and unless we disassociate criminal offences from integrity issues. Now, when Parliament says clearly that somebody should not hold public office, they have not addressed themselves to you being guilty of a criminal offense. They have just said you acted in a manner that does not support you holding that substantive office. Why run to court to justify whether you're guilty or not? Parliament did not say you're guilty. They said there is a problem with your integrity.
Yet the laws we made them are supposed to guide us. Did we shoot ourselves in the foot by creating laws that actually go against our societal values? That whatever you say about me, even though I could have committed an offense, I can still go to court and ensure that nothing happens to me.
I think largely the failure to hold most of these people to account and responsibility, and then the consequences of the actions boils down to nothing else but the willingness by those entrusted to enforce that particular requirement. And especially like in this case, you see the IEBC is on the spot. It comes down to their unwillingness to do so, because yes, looked at in the broader view and sense, the provision of that law that you're innocent until proven guilty is extremely fundamental in having a just society. Otherwise, you would have absolute chaos. And as Brian says, then largely towards criminal offences. And then you come to the integrity issue. And remember, in the Constitution, there is a clear provision that actually, especially when you are an office holder, and you act in a manner that is either demeaning or that is not befitting of the office that you uphold, in as far as the integrity of that office is concerned, it is in the Constitution that you should not then continue to hold that office just by acting in a manner that does not befit the integrity of the office itself.
Not a criminal offense.
Yeah. And so you find that really it is about the willingness to apply. You don't need to go looking for any other law or a court decision for you to apply the Constitution, and see in the Constitution.
Yes, what we've done right now is that the KNCHR has actually gone to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to actually break it down and say, okay, how do we apply this particular law on integrity? It means we do not understand exactly when it comes to integrity what we're talking about.
Let me tell you something. First of all, that heading of the church, it is right and wrong at the same time. I think IBC definitely, particularly the previous one, the officials were very wrong. I'll give you a very good example. The case of Wetangula. Wetangula today should not be holding any public office because the court ruled as such. But then the IBC invited an appeal, and it's not an appellate court, against the ruling of the court that Wetangula did not deserve to hold public office because he was prosecuted by the court. Now, IBC, because of political pressure, allowed him to continue. He should not have continued. Now, the church, I would say they are also wrong in the sense that they are criticizing IBC. But what people don't realize, the church itself can go to the Supreme Court and try to say Chapter 6 on leadership and integrity needs an interpretation by the court and the Supreme Court. And that's why Kenya National Commission on Human Rights is very right that it has gone to court, to the Supreme Court, so the Supreme Court can do the interpretation. Because the problem that we are having here is this: if you say somebody should not hold public office, in fact the Chapter 6 says your actions and decisions are the basis for you not to hold office if you conduct yourself or you do things that are not consistent with the office that you are holding. That's what it says. Now, the trouble is this: IBC is not brave enough to be able to say this has been said by the court, and therefore we say you cannot hold office. And then if you, as a candidate, want to challenge the decision of the IBC, then you go to court.
Yes.
Because you see, we must realize there is what we call the doctrine of separation of power. Institutions in this country operate under the law, and the court is the only independent arbiter that determines yes or no. And that's why we can talk about morality, we can talk about all sort of things, but
Still Karanji, just before you leave that point, just before you leave the point, I just wanted to interject so that you can make it more clear.
Yes.
You see, I think where we have the departure when I talk about the will is this. What you're saying is correct, that yes, if you want to challenge the decision of IEBC based on a court ruling, but actually because the provisions of the Constitution are clear, what the IEBC, for example, should be doing is apply the law. Say the law here says that if you act in a manner that is inconsistent, we can't allow you to run. And so you being the person who is the culprit, then you go to court.
After IBC has declared.
And then you say
IBC is not brave enough to do so.
It is not brave enough.
But not brave enough to wait for a court decision, but to act as per the Constitution.
Now let me tell you where the problem is. And this is the fundamental problem that we have. And I know Kabage is a lawyer and he understands this. Now, when you have a criminal matter, the standard of proof is so high, Fred. When you hear that he who alleges
the burden is on you,
must prove, meaning that you have to prove, and you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt, meaning that even if there is an iota of doubt, then you have not proved beyond reasonable doubt. And that is the reason why issues of integrity cannot be misconstrued to mean a criminal matter, because the standard of proof is extremely high. And that is the reason why in the Wetangula case, the matter before the court was a civil matter. Now a civil matter, the standard of proof is very different, because we look at the balance of probability. Now the court addressed itself and made a decision to the fact that it was a civil matter. So now IBC, somebody went to IBC and said, no, this guy committed an offense. The matter before court was not to test whether Wetangula was innocent or guilty of a criminal offense, because again the standard of proof would have been higher. And that is the reason why IBC
let me make it clear.
And that is the reason why IBC again could not make a decision based on the decision of the court.
I'm hoping we will not engage in some legal argument that most of our audience can't understand.
I think it's important. Let me tell you, IBC misdirected itself. In fact, somebody should have gone to court to say IBC was wrong, because the judgment is very clear. Wetangula was found guilty of committing an election offense of bribery. Do you understand? That is the pronouncement of the High Court
in a civil matter.
No, not just the High Court, the Appeals Court, and even the Supreme Court. Do you understand? The IBC entertained an appeal that doesn't exist. That's why I'm saying they were not brave enough to be able to say, and this is a fact, this is all on record.
Time for a break. Time for a break. When we come back, we'll continue this issue. And the question is, do you think any of the 14 candidates summoned by the IEBC on allegations of breach of electoral conduct, that any one of them could be barred from office, from running for office? That when we return.